Hello lovely people, I'm Catherine and welcome to this week's Journal for Self-Care, Journal for All Seasons. Today is the 3rd of February and in Ireland it is St Bridget's Day, and on Saturday the 1st of February it was Imbolc or Imbolc, which in the Celtic calendar is the day that is exactly halfway between, in the Northern Hemisphere, the winter solstice and the spring equinox. So I wanted to sort of commemorate, honour, whatever word you want to use, that point in the calendar, in the wheel of the year. So I've got this. I'm just wanted to show you what I've got to start with. I think it's going to be quite a long process, but these are the elements I've got. So I've got a print out of a woman. Now this is actually a laser print. I don't think that really matters for this. I got it from a website called Unsplash, and I did go and look. I printed it out I got it quite a long time ago because someone laser printed them for me, this and some others. And I couldn't find this again to link you to it. I'm sorry, there's millions of images on Unsplash, but I chose this because it's a youngish woman, young, very young in comparison to me, but she's holding something, a lantern I think, and I'm going to make this into a candle or a flame of some kind. Because Bridget is also known as the keeper of the flame or the bringer of the light. The other thing I've got from a magazine is a swan. Sorry, it's glary and shadowy. Let me just see if it's really disturbing. I hope it isn't. I can't do anything about the sun other than pull the curtain across, which I've already done. So apologies. Yeah, so I've got this image of a swan, and a swan in Celtic mythology represents transformation. So I've got that. And I've also got some spring flowers, and I think I'm going to go with sort of lime greens and yellows. That's better. I just pulled the other curtain across because, you know, those are springy colours. So I've got these flower images. That's a lily of the valley. And that side there is another kind of lily, I think. Might be a daylily. And I got these, by the way, from this book, which I do believe is widely used by junk journals and art journal makers. I found this in a charity shop some time ago. It's called Mr. Marshall's Flower Book. It's a modern book, but it's got these wonderful botanical pictures in it. So, you know, if you come across that on your travels, look at that. That's an absolute treasure. So yeah, Mr. Marshall's Flower Book. So the first thing I'm going to do, oh, and the other thing is, I don't know if I mentioned, I have written a poem, which I'm going to include on my spread, and I'll share that with you at the end. And I will also write the poem in the text box below the video. So if you feel free, if you want to use my poem in your journal, you are welcome to it. Otherwise you could write your own, or, whatever. So my spread in my journal is a page of sketchbook paper that's been coffee dyed, and this bit of old graph paper that's also been tea or coffee dyed, with my brown tape up the middle. So I'm probably going to cover it all up again. So I thought I'd have my swan somewhere up here. It's got this weird shadow on it, this arc, and then I think I'll put Bridget, as I'm calling her, or Bridget, somewhere in there like that. Obviously I'll do trimming. And then I don't know what I'm going to do around her, and I might paint over her, we'll see. And then I've got my flowers, which I'll use somewhere on the other side, and I'll write my poem somewhere in here, possibly on another piece of paper, and stick it in. So I'll start with sorting my images out and getting them stuck down. And I want it to come over the page. So it's because I only need like this much room for my poem, and I always like to cover this gutter if I can. So starting with the swan, I think I want it to come as far over as possible, but I mean obviously you won't have exactly the same image, but I'm just lining up where that will then put her. I think that's good. So, but I don't want this hard edge, of course I don't. So I'm going to tear that. I hope this is a better setup. I have cobbled 2 camera stands together to get you really high up, and hope that works better and my head comes in less. So I'm just going to try and tear off the very edge of this, just really to make it raggedy. There we go. Get rid of that. That edge is already raggedy. And I don't know whether I want to. I don't think I want to cover those. That's the the edge of the sketchbook. So then it will go down into the gutter like that. And I'm not sure whether I want to go round the swan. No, I don't think I do. I think I'm just going to tear this off raggedy as well. Just tear a bit off just so it's a rough edge. And then I am going to cut or tear around that archway, that curve. And a few people have asked, I don't know if it'll work on this paper because this paper is a bit glossy, about tearing. One tip you can do, if you I've got a water brush, which is just a thing full of water with a brush on the end, but it also will work with a normal paintbrush. If you, let's see if it works on here. If you wet it, no, it's not going to work on this paper. If it was normal paper, let's do it on this bit of book page just to show you. If it was normal paper that's not glossy, if you draw a line with some water around where you want to tear, and then just let it soak in a minute, but not dry, then the paper will naturally tear on that line. And obviously it doesn't work with glossy magazine images, but you see it, the tear followed the line. I didn't have to mess about with it in any way, shape or form. So that's just a little tip that I've picked up. Keep that. But that doesn't work. Where's my little rag now? There it is. A painting rag. Let's dry that off. But yeah, if you don't have a water brush, then just a normal paintbrush just dipped in water. That's just a little by the by. So I'm going to have to just go for this. It's quite thick, this paper, like I said. I'm just going to rough tear it. I'm going to be doing painting and all sorts probably. It's quite hard when it's a big image because I can't get my hands around it. Excuse me while I struggle. You could of course cut if you're happier cutting, but there we go. I came at it from the other side and managed. It went a bit wonky in the middle, but it'll be alright. So now I've got that, let's bring the journal back in. So that's going to go there. So now my other picture, I'm going to position her somewhere under there, I think. And I don't think I'm going to bother trimming this and this because I'm going to do a bit of collage over the top. So I'm just going to trim it at the bottom. Just put a little pencil mark so I can see where I need to trim. There. Yeah, I had some laser images printed by someone who had a laser printer, because to do image transfer, and I will do that with you at one point. I did almost do it today, but then there's so much other stuff going to be going on here, I thought it was just too much. But I will do that at one point with you, so that you can transfer the image from a laser print directly onto your page. But it's a bit of a process. Right, so I'm going to put my swan where it needs to go. I'm going to put my girl where she needs to go. There, and then I'm going to put, whoops, a little line just to show me where I need to put her. So then I'm going to go and glue her on, and I'm going to glue the swan on, and then I'll be back for the next bit. I just used my Mod Podge, and for this one, because it was just copy paper, I actually put the glue on the page and stuck her on, and for this one, because it was a bit sturdier paper, doesn't want to stick down, I put the glue on the image. In hindsight, I did want to do a bit of sanding on this. I should have done that first, but now I have to wait for it to dry and do it carefully while it's there. So now I'm going to soften up around the edges with some book page, which I've just pulled out of my scraps. You could obviously use any kind of paper that you've got. And when I've done that, I'm going to put some gesso on, probably. The other thing I did was I did remember to put my bit of greaseproof paper under my page just to protect the rest of my journal. So I sort of thought long and hard about this because I don't like to be Northern Hemisphere-ish. You know, I'm fully aware that many of you are on the other side of the world, and but I thought maybe you could interpret in some way that you're halfway between your midsummer and autumn, the autumn equinox, because I know many of you have got it hot and unpleasant at the moment. Up there, that bit. So yeah, I'm just collaging really. I don't really want to cover the swan up too much. Whoops. Flicking glue everywhere. The only thing with you being up high is you might see the more of the back of my head. I do my best to stay back out of the way, but you know, I can only do my best. I'm like I said, I'm going to gesso probably all over this book page. I just have a lot of book page because I take old books apart to make journals, and it's just a good way of using it really. And it just makes a nice textured background, and it's fun to do, I think. So I want to keep her hair, and I'll vaguely tear the shape so that it goes around her hair. And then around her arm. Just auditioning. That'll do, pig. And the thing always with me is I audition and I glue it, put the glue on, and then I come back and I can't remember exactly how I had it. But you know, as long as it goes where you want it and you're happy with it, it doesn't really matter if it's not in exactly the right place. Just follow the curve of her arm, like so. And also, even though probably most of the text will disappear, I do like to try and get it going, you know, every which way, rather than, you know, have it all. There's my ruler. Glue on her hair now. Let's get messy. Get messy with glue. So some of the text might show through, whoops, sorry about them plain eyes, even as lines, you know, so I just need a tiny bit in there really. Back to that bit. And you can be as finicky or as slapdash as you like with this process. And then different things on different days. So I'm just going to go ahead and do this just around here, and then around here and round the swan, and round the top here, that whole area. And that's going to take me quite some time, and there's quite a lot else to be done, so I think I'll go away and do that and come back. Oh, before I do that, am I going to sand this? I might do a bit of my sanding block. I think it's dry enough not to come to any trouble. And again, I'll try and do it with my head out of the way, so I now literally can't see what I'm doing. I'm not going to sand the girl, I don't think. And that's all going to be covered up anyway, but I'm just getting a feel for how much I can rub at it before I get to the actual swan. And of course you don't have to do this if you like it to be all pristine and glossy. It's just personal taste. Excuse my head, but I need to see. I should really have done it before I glued it down, because now I can't get it flat, you know, so I'm making actual score marks. There's my other bit of sandpaper that's not on a block, but I can't find it. Got some in the shed, but that would involve going a long way away. It also might help, it might have helped to have sanded the other side before I put the glue on. When it's such a thick, heavy, glossy magazine. So maybe I will sand the background in the hope that it helps when I come to glue the book page on. Right, well, I'll leave it at that for now. I'll have a look once I've turned the camera off. I can get my nose right in there, and I'll be back when I've finished the rest of the collage. Okay, I've finished my collage, and now I've watered down some artist gesso. It's already a cheap gesso, so it's quite thin to begin with, but just with water I've got it about the consistency of pouring cream, and I'm going to just very quickly go over my image. Now it's got quite a high contrast, this image, so what I'm hoping is going to happen, I've done similar things before but not for a while, is that it will give me a surface that I can watercolour paint onto, but I'll still be able to see her through it. If I had clear gesso I could use that. In fact I have got some clear gesso, but I thought you might not have, so I thought I'll just use plain old gesso, which is certainly cheaper I think and more easily accessible. So I'm just going I'm not bothering if it's going a bit blotchy. It's just, all I want is to have a surface that I can paint on and still be able to see her through it, to, you know. Basically, if I could paint a decent rendition of a woman or a girl, I would have just painted, but I can't, so I haven't put in the practice, you know. So painting over an image gives you the shadow and the light and the form and all that, and then you can, and I'm going to go probably a bit abstract with the colour. It means you can get away with all kinds of stuff if you say it's abstract. So that hopefully is enough. And I don't, you know, like I said, I don't mind the grainy texture and all that. That's kind of what I'm going for. It's very much an experiment. And so I'm going to go over the swan as well. And then I'm going to go with some thicker gesso over my book page. So we're going to do all that. I'll let that dry and then I'll come back for the painting part. Okay, so that's all dry. See, the gesso is dried and I can see her quite clearly now. And on the background I used quite a stiff old brush, and rather than painting I kind of blobbed it on, so it's quite textured. Now my issue with doing this is being able to see myself and getting my head in the way, so I think, and also it's going to take quite a long time, so I'll sort of give you a broad overview of what I'm going to do. Excuse me, trying to get my chair in. And I'll give you a broad overview of what I'm going to do, and then I'll go away and do that on my own and then come back and show you. But basically what I'm going to do with the girl is I'm going to colour her hair, I think sort of oranges and golds and yellows. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to kind of see where I go with it. And her face, I might just put some colour into her lips and some colour into her eyes, and then just see and just sort of feel my way along. And then with the swan, now I've made it all sandy and grungy, I might just bring back the eye and the black around the beak and the bit of orange there. And I might also paint a little bit with some white with some of the colours in to I'm just going to play basically. And then at one point I'm going to turn this into a candle, I think, with a flame. So I might either paint that on, or I might draw it on a separate piece of paper and stick it on. I'll see where I get. So I'll just start the painting with you just to give you a general idea. Let's start with her hair, because I think that's the sort of easiest thing. So I've got my watercolours here. I'm going to pull my sleeves up. And I just use these Winsor & Newton watercolours, but obviously you can use whatever you've got. If you want to do this, you could use colouring pencils or acrylic paints, or whatever you've got. But I'll tell you what colours I'm going to take. I'm going to take cadmium red pale, which is more of an orange than a red, and I might also mix anything relevant that's left on my plate. Oh, I haven't sprayed my palette. I've put a bit of packaging paper over the rest of my journal just to protect it a bit. I think I'm going to do it quite washy. I'm not going to do it really thick pigmented colour. You can always start washy, and then if you want it to be more pigmented you can add. That colour now I'm getting is called Gamboge, which is like a ochre-y, orangey. That's on the slant, so my colours are going to run. Colour. Excuse me. And then I'm going to get some raw sienna, which I use a lot, which is also a kind of goldy yellow colour. Get that quite wet. I'm just going to run into the red. Oh well, never mind. And then probably something just to darken it, so something in the browns, maybe a burnt umber, I don't know, maybe a burnt umber. And I'm just going to play really. I might pay a little bit of attention to, you see, if you look at the image, that the light's coming from this side, because this side of her face is light and this side is dark. So I might just, I'm just seeing how the paint sits on the gesso. Okay, well, we'll see. Maybe I'll try and make swirly movements so it's more hair-like. I'll probably let it come out a bit onto the. I'm no painter. I'm certainly no portrait painter. This is just playing. And like I said, because I'm not really adept, it's going to take me a long time and a lot of getting my nose in there. It's good. It's kind of sitting on the gesso. Not too bad. Let's get some of this Gamboge in there. There she's got sort of a swirl, so I might just use that swirl. What helps me as well, because I'm inclined to get finicky with it, is to hold the brush sort of higher up and try and be a bit looser. Basically I'm just following the lines that are there already. And then I'll let it dry and see where I'm at. And over this side I'm going to use some of these lighter yellows. I'm also kind of hoping that once I've got a layer of watercolour on, subsequent layers will go on better. That makes sense. Like here I might carry her hair on down. And I'll try and put more form into it later. I might even go in with some pencils later as well. So, her hair isn't there in the photo, I'm just carrying it on. So that's it really. So I'm going to go away and do that, and I'll come back and show you what kind of mess I've made. But I'm not really 100% happy doing that on video. I feel myself being anxious, so I'd rather just go and play on my own. I hope that's okay, and I hope I've given you enough, you know, for you to go and play yourselves as well. But I'll definitely come back and show you however it turns out, even if it's absolute rubbish and I need to stick something over it. I'll come back and tell you. So I'll be back in probably a couple of hours, but no time at all. Okay, I'm done with the paint. It's got several layers on. It's taken a couple of hours. I'm happy with her face. I've extended the lantern thing down a bit and done suggestions of her hands holding it, and I've coloured in the top gold, and I'm going to cut a flame shape out of a piece of paper and stick that on there. The swan, I should have done that first with hindsight, because that was much easier, the painting. All I did was kind of match the colours that were already there and just vaguely wash them on, and then pick out the black and the orange around the head and the eye. It just makes it look a bit less like a magazine page and a bit more like a painting. So what I'm going to do now with her hair, because I couldn't with watercolours get, you know, the dark here onto here. I could have painted it dark first, I suppose, with hindsight. But anyway, just to kind of, I want to make her hair a bit more wild and, you know, fairy-like, or what's the word, magical looking. So I'm going to have a play about with other crayons and pens and things that I've got and see where I get to with that. And then I've got some other elements to stick on and the words to come. So I'm going to go and do that. I'm going to have something to eat first, because it's 2:10 and I haven't had any lunch. It's actually Sunday. I'm doing this on Sunday. So I'll go and do that, and then I'll come back later on this evening and finish her off and share with you the rest of her. And okay, I've made start. When in doubt, scribble on it. What I've done is just take a 4B soft pencil, and I'm just literally scribbling. So I'm darkening up these areas here, outside here. What I could have done in hindsight, which is a wonderful thing, is put heavier gesso over all of her hair to lighten it up, to sort of, and then put it back in over the top. But I didn't do that, so I'm doing this. So I just scribbled with the dark lead, changed this shape a bit because it was a bit weird, just to get the outline right. And I've also gone a little bit onto the swan, just scribbling, just holding the pencil right at its very end. I might just go a little bit onto her face. And just softening everything up. This sort of curly thing, I went round and round, you know, following the shape. The pencil's nearly run out of lead now. But I'm just, you know, just basically trying to blend everything in. And then I've got my watercolour pencils. Could be any pencils. I've got an orange, and again I'm just scribbling some colour in. And I may or may not then activate them with a bit of water. And just really loose. I was getting a little bit despondent with it. I don't know if that's the right word. Because, you know, I was happy with how her face turned out. I just did a little bit of green on her eyes and some grey and black to accentuate her brows, and then 2 tiny little white dots on the pupils that always makes eyes pop. And then her lips I did with some rose madder, and then I put a little bit of white on the lower lip as a highlight, and then just a very vague yellowy pinky wash over the rest of her face. And then her dress I did green. I might do some more scribbling on that as well in a minute. But I think this as an exercise, if you start getting a bit precise and particular about things, for me, just stop being precious about it, Catherine. Just go and scribble. Let's get a different colour orange. Whoops. And do some more scribbling. See, I'm literally scribbling like a child. I thought of collaging, you know, tearing some gold and orange and yellow bits of paper up and giving her a really wild collage hairdo, but I've done a lot of collage. I thought I'd do something different. I think that's the thing with mixed media, it's just a question of just keep chucking stuff at it until you're happy. I'm going to scribble round and round there with the orange. That it looks quite good in person. I don't know if you can see it really close up. Maybe when I'm done I'll just do a little handheld close up scan of the whole thing. And this here is what's really bothering me the most, this hard line, but I've come up with a solution for that, I think, which I'll show you in a minute. Just get some yellow. Scribbly, not much to say really apart from scribble. But yeah. But I love this technique of getting an image and then painting on it. For, you know, me who can't paint something that looks like what it's supposed to look like. Because I've got a human face, well, a human face that I didn't draw. And another thing you could do is trace faces, you know, and then paint onto them. If you can't draw faces. But I think that will take a lot of practice to be able to draw a good face or paint a good face. And apparently I'm not prepared to put in the work, so I have to find a way. Let's just put some of this reddish brown. Oh, that's quite strong, that's good. These pencils are quite soft, so they can be a little bit frustrating because you have to keep sharpening them, especially when you do this with them. A little bit, soften the line of her shoulder a bit. And put a bit more of the brown, maybe right in the centre of that swirly thing. And then I'm going to get my water brush. Actually, I might just use a paintbrush and have an experiment. I haven't done a lot with these with water. Mostly I've just used them as colouring pencils. So I'm a bit scared. Don't be scared. Excuse me. Let's take a medium one. I'm going to go here where I know I'm going to stick something on in a minute just to experiment what it does. I don't really like it because it's mixing it with the lead as well, I think, you know, the regular graphite. No, I'm going to not do that. I'm not going to do that. So my solution for here, oh, I was going to do some green in her dress. I'll just let that dry a minute. I'm going to just go into her dress and do some more shading with the green it's just over the top of the watercolour that I put there, just to soften it all a little bit. But again, just keeping it really loose. Trying to relax into it. Tiny bit in there because that was the darker side. With some of this more bluey green. That's better. It's just softened up a little bit. the lines where I put in the different shades of the watercolours. And just intensify the colour a little bit. I have a few acrylics, you know, 1 or 2, but it's not really, I don't really like working with acrylics. But I think going over this, you know, her hair probably with acrylics would have worked better because they're much thicker and they sit on top. But you know, you play with whatever you've got and whatever you like to work with. A tiny bit of this. Tiny bit in there. There we go. Well, I think her hair is a bit more blendy now than it was. I'm certainly happier with it. So my solution for here is I've cut out this flower. And I'm going to stick that there. And that's going to blur that line. Down here there's still a bit of a jump. It's right down at the bottom. It's only this tiny bit. Maybe I can just darken that junction a little bit more. That's alright. So I'm going to glue that there. And then I have got a flame that I made. So I just cut out of a piece of paper. And it had to be wide enough to cover that handle of the lantern. But I didn't want it so high that it appeared to be burning her chin. So that's what I've gone with. So I'm going to stick that on there. Actually I might trim it slightly because it's a slightly, don't trim it too much or it won't cover the other bit. And I'm going to stick that on there. And then I've cut out another flower. Excuse me. One of those big flowers. And I'm going to put that there. Which is covering up half my swan, but there you go. I might cut some more out of the top there. And I might take that stem off. So I'll do that and stick that on. And then I've got my words to go there, which I've written out on my poem, which I've written out on some black paper. So I'll do that afterwards. I've got some other bits to stick on there first. So where's my glue book? Let's get those glued on. I've got my, oh, it's just, I left it out because I thought I'd need it again. Excuse me, I'm so sorry. I'm not getting another cold. Get my paste brush, excuse my arm. Just still a bit wet. I did go and wash it. See, that hair was really bothering me, but now I see it with all the other bits over it. I think it's fine. I think it's fine. I was getting all, you know, upset that it wasn't coming out how I wanted it to. Which happens sometimes, doesn't it? I think you just have to keep working at things until you get there. You want to stay stuck. There's my little flame. Let's do this. I will, before the end of the year is done, do the painting with you. I'll come up with a way so that I can see and I don't have to keep putting my head in the way, so you can see and do something like, you know, some kind of image of some kind, a face or something. And be brave, Catherine. That's one of my words of the year, is to be brave and do it with you, because I know you won't judge me. I don't know why I got anxious about it. I think it is as well that it just takes me so long because I spend so long looking at it and trying to decide what to do, and you know, it's a weird bit on there. I'll stick that there. Just disguise that line. Lovely jubbly, and actually I really like that now. So I thought, oh, if I stick a flower on her hair it'll hide that join, but actually that's really lovely. I think. So I need to trim this a bit more. I'm going to just do a cut there. I didn't fussy cut round all these stamens because it would have been too small and fiddly and it would break. So I just sort of cut vaguely curvy shapes around, you know, the body of them, a few of them at once. I'm sure you know how to fussy cut probably better than I do. And I suppose if you really wanted to, you could go in there and cut all these out, but my background is a similar colour, so I'm not going to bother doing that. When you're cutting, if you don't know, it's best to turn the paper and not the scissors. You get a cleaner line. This last bit. Let's try it for size. Yeah, that's better. See, although I've covered up part of my swan, I do love the way it's now coming out from behind the plant. So now I need to stick that on, which might be challenging because it's bigger than my glue book. And then I'll read you my poem, and I can stick the poem on. I'm in two minds whether to put any more words on here, whether to put Imbolc or Bridget or Keeper of the Flame or something like that. I'll have a think about it. If I do, I will show you. Obviously, I'm just having a think. Maybe I will do that, just so that I know what it was about in future when I look back and, you know. That should be enough glue. Excuse my head. But I need to line it up. These images in this book are just beautiful. There we go. Is it all stuck down? I think so. It's got many, many little sticky outy bits. And I love the way that just curls round onto her forehead as well. Stick. Now if you've got little sticky up bits that don't stick, you can just do that. There we go. That's good enough, I think. Right, so yeah, I've stuck my flame on. Yes, I'm going to stamp some words, I think. So I'll do that, you don't need to watch me stamping. I'll go and stamp some words and then I'll come back again. Sorry for all the editing. I hope I've done a good enough job of making it flow reasonably well. So I'll go and stamp some words and I'll come back and show you the final thing. Okay, I am done. So I stuck on the elements that I showed you. I stamped out the words Bridget and Keeper of the Flame. I strategically placed that to cover that area that was bothering me. And the word Imbolc, which I stuck up there. I inked them, and once they were stuck down I coloured around the edge just with a graphite pencil. And I wrote my poem on this piece of black paper, and I stuck another smaller version of that one on there with its two leaves. And then I wasn't happy with the hard line where I stuck that paper on, so I just collaged on some more book page just to soften the line, and then I gessoed it. The gesso is still a little bit wet here and there. And while I was waiting for the gesso to dry, I drew two parallel lines with a gold pen and a ruler around the edge, and I just put a little dot, you know, I just went along doing dot dot dot. And this morning on my walk with Stella, laying in the path were these three whitish feathers, and they're not swan's feathers because there's no water near the park. They're probably pigeon feathers. So anyway, I've glued them on there as if they've fallen from the swan. So I'll read you my poem. Stills. There's a bit of wrestling going on now. They think it's tea time. Hopefully they'll be quiet enough for a minute while I read you my poem. So my poem goes, the wheel of the year turns, lifting the lid of winter. Through the widening crack, a warming draught of air, heavy with the scent of promise, stirs motes of clinging memories, making them dance in the searching beams of light. And the feather duster of hope sends fear and anger and sorrow scuttling for cover. So I'll write that in the text box below if you want to, copy it or whatever. So that is my spread for this week. That has taken me the best part of the day. I've gone through a bit of a roller coaster of emotions with it, from, thinking, what am I doing, trying to paint in a video, paint something that has to look like something, to, in the end, I'm really pleased with it. I really like it. So it just goes to show, persevere, especially love the swan behind this flower. So thank you so much for watching. I hope I've given you some ideas, and I hope you have fun making your own journal spread if you're following along for this week. And I look forward to seeing them in the Facebook group, those of you that are in there. If you're not in the private Facebook group and you'd like to join us, there's a link down in the description. So meanwhile, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to you joining me next time for more journaling tales. Bye bye.